everyone. Welcome back to the Content Matters podcast. This is actually our last episode of 2022. And wow, it's been a year. And I'm very excited to end it off talking with Sangram.
Barb, so good to be with you. It was great meeting you in Boston when we had the road show, and also just seeing how much the community out there has grown, loving this idea of how companies need to go to market. So I'm excited to jump into it.
Yeah, it's great. I think there's lots of stuff. I have lots of questions for you. And we're not going to start with GTM Partners, even though that's going to be a big part of it. But I really wanted to kind of step back and kind of talk about a couple other things first. So actually, my first question for you was, how did you get into marketing in the first place?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, my bachelor's and master's is in computer science. Although, quick fun story, when I was doing my master's in Alabama, I would always be asked to present from my group. And I thought I was a great presenter. And that's really what I felt like. Oh my gosh, my team really loves me. They want me to be great. And that's when I learned how to present and tell a story as opposed to just talk about what we're building. It's like why we're building and all that. So I really got good at it in my master's program. A few years later, I meet those guys and they tell me like, hey, we always used to ask to present. I'm like, yeah, man, thank you. It made me a better storyteller. That led me to marketing. And they're like, no, actually, you were just a bad coder. So we didn't want you to code. So we just wanted to get you out there and do whatever you want to do. And I'm like, dude, like I literally built my entire thing around that. So I think it was by accident, to say the least. But also I loved, in the early days, I was running I was in a program manager job, and I was helping from a technology perspective, and I was helping a whole bunch of marketing departments in a company. And I love the idea that you can instantly figure out if a message is working or not. You can test different things. You can experiment. Things were just changing all the time. And I love that idea of that instant gratification of test and seeing what works, what not. So I really fell in love with that.
And how long were you in marketing before you went off and created Terminus?
Oh, that was probably 5 years.
So that was pretty quick to turn around.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. And even like Terminus was an accident, right? Most of it, like I think I should write a book on accidental evangelist at some point, because I think that's what I ended up becoming.
Yeah.
Is even that, like the Terminus was already started about 6 months before I joined. And they by the two co-founders, Eric Spett and Eric Vass. And I saw them present a version of what it was advertising thing. And I'm like, well, if you just do this and this, it might be a product. And I was at Salesforce at that time. And they're like, well, if you're so passionate, why don't you come join us? And I'm like, join you? Like what? And that made me think about, they're like, yeah, join in. I'm like, well, if I'm joining at this stage, and if you're going to go build a product, not an agency, then I want to come in as a co-founder. So we have to recapitalize. And I came in as a co-founder. But even that one wasn't like I sat around and came up with the whole idea. It was they built the technology that I was able to see far enough, because I was a marketer and I could see the problem that they were trying to solve and give it a name, give it a face, give it a problem, solution, idea, all flip my funnel, all that thing. It just allowed me to tell a better story around it, around what the technology they were building at that time. And it just became a really cool thing to continue to work on.
Yeah, what I think is interesting about Terminus is the whole flip my funnel kind of community and concept that you created, that instead of just going out and doing typical lead gen kind of marketing activities or whatever, you actually created a story and an idea and a category that no one else was doing at that time.
Thank you. Yeah, it was ironically, Barb, it's like I didn't think that's what we were doing at that time. We were just doing whatever it took. For example, the flip my funnel, most people don't know this, and I've not talked about it a lot, is when I joined as a co-founder, we wanted to do a Terminus event, like, hey, we have arrived, and we're in Atlanta, we're the first time founders, and nobody wanted to come and sponsor it, and we didn't raise enough money to do anything, because we didn't even have a product at that time. So I was like, all right, I know all these people, and clearly they don't want to sponsor a Terminus event. So I literally bought the domain for $8 called Flip My Funnel. because I wrote a blog, and this was on LinkedIn in 2014. So 5 people liked it, which means it went viral,
Yeah.
by that standards. So and people were like, oh, this is really cool. The whole Flip My Funnel idea is cool. So I bought the $8 domain and then literally sent the same exact email with change from, hey, we're going to do a Terminus event to do a Flip My Funnel event. And all the same people wanted to sponsor it now, because it was a community event that they would be rather sponsor than a product event. And it was such a light bulb moment for me, is that people want to solve problems. They want to be associated in a community that has a much bigger overarching thing that they want to solve for.
Right.
And you'll get sponsorship, you'll get people to attend, because everybody want to be part of a movement that's getting created. But if it was just a product thing, nobody really cared to be part of it.
Yeah, that's interesting, kind of how something so simple changed so much so fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fast, and it was literally the first event we did. All of them said, well, this is so good. Where's the next event? And we didn't plan for the next event. So we're like, all right, we're going to do the next event now. So it literally just snowballed and grew. And I think the one thing that I do recommend, as I talk to a lot of founders and CEOs, when they come back and ask about, hey, how did we want to do the same thing? You're like, I think the part that ended up being the best thing was we stuck with that one idea of Flip My Funnel. We wrote books on it. We created a community on it. We did events on it. We did podcast on it. So in general, we just stuck with one idea long enough for it to penetrate the market, so everybody can associate Terminus with Flip My Funnel and the movement and the category at large. If we would have just done that as a marketing campaign, which you and I both know changes every 3 months and 6 months, then we would have just had a great hit, one-time hit, and never ever really gotten people to really sink in that idea. So I think we were stuck long enough with it for 3, 4, 5 years, all the way. This is the underscoring of it, where I think the greatest attribution, if you would, Forrester created their wave report, and Gartner created their Magic Quadrant, and they wrote in it that the reason they put Terminus at the top at that time was because one of the 3 things they wrote, was because of the Flip My Funnel community and what it has done for the category.
Yeah.
And to me, like that was like they are very careful of what are the 3 things they would write, and one of them was that. And I think that was a big underscore statement for us. And I think for everybody who's listening and trying to build a community, I think they should think hard that whatever you do, you have to stay with it for long enough for it to be valuable.
Yeah, and I think that that's probably something that some companies struggle with. They think we'll do it for a year, and if it doesn't take off, then we give up. We try something else, when it's really a long-term thing that you have to kind of put your time and energy and focus in to make it really go well.
Yeah.
But I will say that the Flip My Funnel is probably the thing that made account-based marketing the category to talk about. And it's interesting that today it feels like, from my perspective as a journalist for Diginomica, it's all I ever hear about anymore is account-based marketing. Everybody wants me to talk to their company or their analyst or expert about account-based marketing. And I just find it's very interesting that it's so ingrained in everything that we do now, even though it's only one of many things we should be doing.
Yeah, it is. And I'm glad I ended up writing the second book, which was ABM is B2B, because I started to see that shift happening, that it was not only for acquisition, like a better mousetrap, but it was used for pipeline velocity. It was used for expansion in accounts. So ABM became much bigger than another demand gen strategy or another campaign. It just became symbiotic with everything that you're doing from a B2B perspective. So I'm glad I ended up writing that book, because the point was this shouldn't actually, over a period of time, just should be better B2B.
Right.
That's how you should go to market. Why would you? If you're in a B2B world, you should know which accounts to go after. You should create unique experiences. You should create engagements that would last longer and get people more focused on the problem that you solve. So you have that opportunity to do it. So I think it will become synonymous to B2B. And I think the next evolution to that, and as I've learned this all along, it's like I'm literally documenting and I'm getting to do the things and experience the things that is unbelievable, from Pardot, which was marketing automation days, to Terminus, which was ABM days, and now thinking about go-to-market, which I think is the next evolution of how companies should think about marketing and sales and CS and product all coming together. I think I'm just happen to live in that era of seeing all of this transformation and somehow being able to play a small part in each one of these things.
Right. So that leads me to the book.
Okay.
What made you and Brian Brown decide to create this book? Because you were in Terminus when you wrote this, right?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, both books, the first ABM book I wrote with Wiley's, and then ABM is B2B. I mean, honestly, I wrote that because they were the best business cards that you could create, right? Like
Yeah.
you write a book, you have an authority in the marketplace, we knew enough about it. It's the best direct mail our teams could send, and it opened so many doors for us. We, from an attribution perspective, we probably closed more than $100,000 deals over and over again with just that content piece. So
Nice.
it was just great, solid piece. So when we started talking about go to market, I started to see a shift in the marketplace that it's great, ABM is good, and it's going to stay probably for the next 3 to 4 years. But we wrote this in 2020, is like, as you look at 22, 24, 25, in my mind, I think the market is going to shift. It's going to become general B2B. And what people are going to look at is, well, what else is going on? And at that time, early on, I started to see PLG coming on board, which I think will become a really, really big deal. Right now, it's just too much noise. It's not, and we are writing research on that one to clarify it. That's what we feel our job is. But there's a lot of noise on it. So PLG is just like ABM was in the early days, where people are like just grasping at it and they're trying to make something out of it, but there's no real clear definitions, understanding, metrics, frameworks. They're just thoughts in it. There are other things that are also happening, like event-led. In 2020, when COVID happened, saw that events, all of a sudden, virtual events and all the different Goldcast Air Meets of the world and others started to emerge. So starting to see this emergence of more than one go-to-market motion. It didn't really occur to me until that point. The world was very much inbound or outbound until the part of writing ABM as B2B. But when we started to research and look at it, I think it's not just inbound and outbound. It's also partner-led. It's also PLG. It's also ecosystem. It's also community. It's also event-led. So we're seeing all these things. And well, what is that? Well, it's go to market. It's how companies decide to go to market, and you can have more than one way to go to market. So I think that initial conversation and thought, like, I don't know what it is, but it seems like it is more around go to market, and that's what people would probably start thinking and talking about was our thesis. And well, I'm glad it feels like we're at the right place, because I think that's what everybody is trying to figure out. How do you get efficient growth, which requires you to figure out what is your efficient go to market strategy, and it has to go beyond just marketing or sales or product launch. It has to get elevated at the C-level and conversations to it. So it was really a thesis at that time, which has now turned into more real work.
Yeah. So go to market is now, it's the new term that everybody likes to talk about. But I still find that it's defined differently. And I like your approach that there's more than one go-to-market strategy in a company, more to one play. But when you hear most people talk about it, it's like there's one way to go to market. Your company has to pick one way. And how do you do that? And how do you know? So this is what led you to start GTM Partners?
Yeah, that really what we saw. The other thing, the big thing that happened was in 2018, you remember, and some of the listeners might remember, Topo and Series Decisions were the two analyst firm. And as they got acquired by Gartner and Forrester, I think there was a void created for mid-market. I remember for Terminus, we literally took Craig Rosenberg, who was with Topo, and Meg Ewer, who was with Series Decisions, to on every single Flip My Funnel event, because they were helping us shape, and we wanted them to know what's happening. We couldn't take Gartner and Forrester with us, but we could take them, and they would come with us. They would write. They were very smart. They were trying to figure out what's the next look like. So that's what we want to do. We want to be write about the new things that are happening much faster than 10 years later, like, other people would write. And we want to work with the next Calendly, the next Zoom Info, the next SalesLoft, the next Terminus. We want to help pen that together. So our goal as the go-to-market partners, as we're building this analyst firm, is to figure out what are these new things that are coming out and be able to create community around it, create frameworks around it, and for the next decade, really do that. That's our goal, because I've been blessed enough to start companies on the software world. I've never done an analyst world, so this is new. But now I'm recognizing we get to now shape categories, not just one. Like with Terminus, we were able to shape a category, and clearly it was amazing. But now with this, I'm getting to see all these different categories, and we're getting to shape them. We're helping them think like, that doesn't sound like a category, but this does. And we're seeing this massive data trend with our partnership with G2 and others on the back end, like where people are actually looking and buying. So we're able to match it and tell like, hey, don't be a category of one. There's no such thing. You will die. Be a category where really there's new demand coming up. So we want to help other companies start seeing that and doing that. So I'm excited for that, because now we get to help shape multiple categories.
Yeah. So you have a team. There's 4 of you that run GTM Partners, Judd, Lindsay, and Brian. What makes that team work for you? What is it? What do you all bring to the table that makes you such a good team to work together?
I love that question. And we have 5. Karthi is the 5th one, who is who does a lot on the back end, and so she's not at the forefront of those events. And we call ours, each one of us have our own lane of genius, is how we define it. And the other way, having done at Pardot and Terminus, just going through a lot of hiring, I found that the best teams are made up of 3 types of people: dreamers, doers, and drivers. And if any team has more of one, then it's messed up. So imagine if anybody just have a bunch of dreamers, well, then everybody is going to have a bunch of ideas. Nobody's going to execute on it. We all have been there where it's just new idea. And I'm a dreamer, so I recognize that that's a strength, but also could be a problem if the team doesn't have other skills. If you have a bunch of doers who just want to get stuff done, check the box, and no questions asked, then you lose what people just keep doing stuff and they don't know where they're going at the end of the day. So you need the doer, and 80% of your company should be made up of doers who are great at doing it with a great vision, that typically would come out from a dreamer. And then drivers are incredibly important, because drivers are the one who create the sense of urgency in organizations, right? They're like, I want everything yesterday. I want to get things done like better. And they're always trying to move the world further, faster than anybody else. So a combination of those 3 make it. But if you have 3 drivers, they will just kill each other, because they will overwork and get burnout and get upset. So a great combination of dreamer, doer, driver is what it is. So I think me and Brian, we are more on the inventor, dreamer side. We love creating frameworks and do that. Judd is a driver. He likes to get things done. So he's on the sales and community. He's just getting new members. He's getting all these activities going on. He's running sales. So it makes perfect sense. Lindsay and Karthi both are incredible doers. They are like, all right, we know this framework. Let's put a deck together. Let's put a research paper together. Let's ship it. And they're always all about shipping it and getting it done quickly. So we have a great combination, I feel, as a team of dreamer, doer, driver, and we've been very intentional about it. And so every time we think about who would we add, we look at, well, what do we need? It's not the skill set that's as important as the mindset that we want at this stage of our business. And I think it's an important lesson I learned at Terminus and Pardot.
Yeah, it's nice to see that you recognize upfront what your qualities and your strong skill sets are, and you kind of work the team together based on that.
Yeah, I mean, and at this stage of our lives, like I've worked with all of them for at least 5, if not a decade. So I know them, they know me. So there's incredible amount of trust that just goes without saying. If you don't have trust, that's hard. Everything is harder all of a sudden, especially in a remote world that we all live in. So, especially since everybody's working remotely at different places, we're all in different cities across the board. So having that innate trust is super cool. I really worry about companies where they're starting off and they're trying to hire people and they've never met them and built relationships with them. Like, you can't really build that on a Zoom box. Like, you really need to go through stuff together in order to build a greater team.
Yeah, I agree. You have been very, very open as you've kind of built this company, this new company, in your emails, kind of telling the story of how you kind of figured out what you wanted to do. like why do you do that? Like why do you share so much information kind of as you move along?
Yeah, it like with Terminus, I don't know if I shared as much the journey. And again, I felt blessed that I got to do that. With this one, and frankly, I made a lot of mistakes when I built Terminus with my team because I wasn't focused on family as much. I wasn't intentional about it. My faith wasn't strong enough. My faith journey was very weak. And I wasn't, I did a lot of things that I'm not proud of during that time. And I did that because I just didn't know any better or didn't have a solid foundation at that time. So this go round, I feel like God has given me another opportunity to do this better, do this well. And the goal is not financial outcome. This is truly more rewarding. I would do that at no money. Like it's just something that I feel truly an opportunity that I'm getting to do it with great people, the right time in the marketplace. So I want to do this well, and I want to document it, and I want to document. I'm going to write that because not because I want 10,000 people to sign up for it. I don't even know how many people like to read it. I just write it because it's therapy for me.
Right.
And I want to document how was I feeling through those moments of uncertainty and what got us over it. A lot of times we hear interviews like that. I told you the whole story of Terminus and Flip My Funnel in like 5 minutes, but it was more than 5 minutes in the moment when I was going through it. But
Yeah.
I don't remember all those details and tug of war and challenges. So this go round, I want to see at the end of the year when I'm done writing this Becoming Intentional newsletter, where do we end up? Do we end up with $1 million in revenue? Do we, and regardless, what lessons and how did we think about? So maybe this will be a blueprint for others to go who are going to be on the same track later.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to show people that you can create a new business, you can create a company, you can create a new technology without sacrificing everything else in your life to do it. Like there is a right way and you can be successful at it.
Yeah, and there are sacrifices for sure, and this go round, I didn't know how to set expectations with my family. Like right now, I feel like my wife and I are at a place where we're like, all right, the next 3 months are gonna be crazy because we're building this up. We're not raising money. We're gonna bootstrap it, so my schedule is gonna be insane. But let's set this up. So I still have like Friday evening, I shut down. I don't pick up my phone or laptop or anything until Sunday after church. So I never did that before in my last gig, right? But now I feel very at peace at it, and that way there's enough time in it in the evenings, and because we're all working from home, we are anyway spending more time with family. So I've been able to, again, I think it's great for all of us that we have this window of opportunity in our lifetime where things have changed. We used to work this way, and now we're working in a completely different way. If you're not taking and making the most out of it, we would regret later on. Like, why did I not spend more time with my fam when I had it, when I was at home and when I could do it? Like, so
Yeah.
I don't want to have regrets. I just want to do what I think we could do right. But there have been moments, Barb, where I'm like, oh my goodness, oh no, I'm on calls at like 7 p.m. because I'm talking, and my family knows that, and I know that I need to apologize. I know, but they know that what I'm doing is how I'm doing, and they get to see it as opposed to me being in an office somewhere in a building. They actually
Yeah.
get to see the work it takes. The kids, I would have my kids sometimes just sit there for a sales call in the backside of this, like just sit and listen, like nothing else, just sit and listen. And I'll ask them later on, what did you hear? How did I do? What happened? What questions? And so we'll have conversations. So I feel like now they're more engaged and part of it as opposed to us trying to create this separation.
Yeah.
You could do that from time, but I think now I'm also engaging with them and making them part of it as opposed to make it completely separate.
Yeah. And I think it's important for your kids to know what you do for a living and how you work, and mine don't. So that's why
Yeah,
it's important. They're like, she does what? I don't know. She's on TV, on the camera all the time.
yeah. She talks, and like my
Yeah.
son, like, yeah, you talk a lot all day. I'm like, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. All right. So tell me a little bit more about GTM Partners. Tell me what you actually do.
Yep. So we are a data-driven analyst firm. And I said that intentionally, data-driven, because we felt like most analyst firms are not data-driven. They are surveys with a few people, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much it. but they're not truly data driven, meaning there are millions of records right now of data available to have really good understanding of what market is looking like, what macroeconomics are looking like. And you don't have to just pontificate. You can actually look at the data and also have some really interesting viewpoints from it. So we have a really great partnership with G2, where we have investor access to data that only some like I think McKinsey and others have. So we have a really strong partnership with G2, Bombora, Demandwell, Sales Intel. So we're starting to create all these partnerships where we're pulling in all the data and looking at it and putting economic impact reports and research every single month out there in the marketplace. So that's data part of it, all around go-to-market. And the second part that we're doing is we are an analyst firm, which means we get to write research on the next thing, and we want to demystify, well, what is PLG? How do you define it? What metrics that we're going to write a research on that one in January and put it out there. This month, we're writing on events. How do you create event-led growth? How can that be a go-to-market strategy with examples and stories and use cases? So we're doing that. So our customers are primarily two types. One are go-to-market vendors. So SalesLoft, Sendoso, Uberflip, Path Factory, Hushly, all of them are our customers. So all go-to-market vendors who want to create ROI story for them, or a point of view story for them, or to figure out which categories they are, how to do competitive analysis. So we're helping go-to-market vendors think about their category and all of those things better. And then members, which are go-to-market professionals who want to be part and want to be on the right side of history and want to learn how to do go-to-market. So for them, we do workshops. We would typically do a 3-hour, 4-hour workshop, help them with their go-to-market strategy, and have an ongoing working sessions throughout the year. So those are the two offerings, one for go-to-market vendors and one for go-to-market professionals.
That seems like a lot of work for 5 people to do.
It is interestingly not. As we have got to, I think, like about 25 customers now. And what's interesting is because we have data and because we have research, it's literally calls. And we just hop on a call and like literally go through, all right, you're looking to change your point of view. Here's what we're seeing. Here's what we're doing. When we're done with the call, they get so much value out of it. They were like, okay, great. I'm good with action items for the next 2 months. So let me go and do this stuff. And then they will have set up call. It is very interesting for us. I don't think we're going to build it yet a 200 people company. Like that's not our goal. We'll probably have 20, 30 people, great analysts. Each analyst can handle easily 20 plus customers in each of these verticals that we are thinking about. So I think we'll be in a good shape without overbloating. Plus, with Terminus, we raised over 120 million. With this, it's completely bootstrapped. So I'm trying to build a business much differently than that.
Yeah. So, okay. So that just leads me to kind of a question of like, well, you're going to continue on this path but where do you see things going for companies in the next couple of years? Because we are kind of shifting to this go-to-market mindset and thinking more strategically, but that's kind of stuff seems to take a long time. Like it took forever for ABM to kind of get situated in a company as a foundational element. How long do you think it's going to take go-to-market to kind of reach the same, I guess, foundational status?
Well, interestingly, I feel go-to-market has been a term that's always been there, whereas ABM was a newer term for a lot of people to grasp in 2014. So I think the adoption will be a lot faster on the go-to-market. What there will be more of will be more confusion around what do I do? How do I get the right one? Because most companies are already using some sort of go-to-market motion. Big aha moments as we're working with so many of these companies now is most companies think they need one go-to-market motion. And what we are realizing based on, again, all this data research is that no, most best companies have at least 2, if not 3 go-to-market motions. So now we are helping all of these companies think about like, well, okay, well, you should have another go-to-market motion. You should test. You'll constantly be testing this new go-to-market motion. It doesn't cannibalize it unless it grows too big, and then you can see where you have. I think that's a big problem. Most companies, why they died in 2020, 2022 is because they only had one go-to-market motion. They only knew how to do business one way, and they were too afraid to test and try. So that's a newer concept in a way for a lot of companies to hear and think about it. So it's not more is better. It's like you need to experiment a little bit more than what you're doing. You can't be stuck with one. And the second part of it is, as you heard at the Boston Roadshow that we've been doing, again, we're doing 3-city in Q1, that the metrics have changed. The pipeline and revenue is no longer the most important metric, although people would say, well, no, of course, pipeline and revenue is important. No, literally, it's not. And the data shows it. You literally, if you have a company that has 120% NRR, you don't need to create a new customer for 5 years and you will still double by selling to the existing customer. So no, pipeline and revenue from new customers is not necessarily the metric. It is a shocker. It's not how systems are set up, not how funnels are set up, which is why we created this go-to-market operating system as a better way to look at things. It's just completely going to push people who have been doing this for decades and think about it differently. So the implementation part, which is why we do these analyst ongoing working sessions, is going to take time. But the term as such, I think, is already there. And people are now grappling to figure out, well, what does it mean for me and my business and my stage that we're in? And we're telling, like, try multiple, at least 2 big feedback loops is try more than one go-to-market and figure out a better metric than your pipeline revenue. And I think it's NRR.
I think I think it's really interesting to hear you kind of say all that. And I, in one way, almost hear marketers, at least, because that's my perspective. I know go-to-market's much more than just marketing, but you hear marketers kind of stand back and go, oh my God, I'm just getting my head around pipeline. And now you're telling me pipeline's not the metric I should be looking at, or revenue for that matter. So now you're like, I have to look at something different. But then on the other side, I see, okay, you want us to go to market in more than one way, but we're a mid-sized company. How the heck do we do that? Like, how does that work? We don't have the people or the resources or the budget to kind of set up more than one go-to-market.
It's so interesting, right? And those are probably the same questions, Barb, you and I heard in 2014, like, whoa, ABM, you need to create this personalized experiences for people. I don't think we have the budget or the time or resources to do that. And you and I both know, well, you really, here is a classic way to think about it. And same thing with ABM, same with GTM. Most companies don't need 1,000 deals to be done this year, like or in 2023. If you really look at the numbers, maybe you need to close 50 deals. Maybe you need to close 100 deals, but that's pretty much it. Maybe 150 deals, 200 deals. But for the most part, it's a very limited subset of companies that you need to close to hit your company's quota. So when you first take away, like, no, you're not going after everybody in the market. You only need X number of deals. We only need like 50 deals. That's all we would need. And that would be more than profitable company for the next 3 years, quite frankly. So when people start to tune out the noise and start focusing on what do they really need to achieve to be successful, I think you automatically say, oh, if I need 50, of course I can create one-on-one experiences for these 50 companies. Of course I can go and figure out a way to create experiences that will move them forward. That's the part I think most people forget. So we have this phrase in that operating system and in the book too, which is don't think about TAM. Think about TRM, which is your total relevant market. If you can get your head wrapped around total relevant market as a marketing, sales, CS product team, then you can start creating product features that are around that. You can have sales motions and marketing motions together around that. Your customer success can create more NRR motions around that. I think it's a much smaller base. You're absolutely right when most people go, oh my gosh, I got to do a whole bunch, because they're thinking about TAM and not thinking about TRM.
Yeah. Good point. Very good point. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we move forward in this kind of new world and new go-to-market kind of approach. And I look forward to reading more about what you guys are doing at GotoMarket Partners and actually hearing more of those real world company stories that you guys are sharing. So it's really great.
Excited. Well, thank you, Barb, that we got to do it. I'm glad I was the person to end end of your podcast. So I'm glad we're able to make it.
Yeah, I'm very happy. It's a great way to end off the season. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And for anybody who's listening, if they want a copy of the book, just DM me on LinkedIn and I'll send you a link and a copy will be shipped. That's my Christmas gift, if you will, for any and everybody who listens to this podcast.
Well, that's great. Thank you. That's great. And thanks everyone for listening. Have a great holiday season and we'll see you in, I can't believe I'm saying this, 2023.
Here we go, 2023.
Yeah. Yeah.